Formables. It's the lifeblood of Rise of Nations. You have a country and you need some incentive to make that country want to invade other countries. Now your country is actually this big country because of a thing called the cores. And you also get modifiers that is connected to your historical empire. I wonder what the Italian Empire did. Your formable has now also been added to this big list that tracks the total completion rate of your total formables. However, showing this list to any other person is effectively advertising yourself as a virgin. Don't make the same mistake I did. Upon hearing all of that, you'd think, wow, formables, they sound great. Can we have more? No! But do you know what you can do? Subscribe! That's right, only 8% of you are in fact subscribed. So if you took your time to just press a button and subscribe, I would be really thankful. If you're still hesitant, I'll make you a deal. I'll put my phone on vibrate and shove it up my ass. Every time someone subscribes, I'll feel it through the vibration. That way you'll know that I felt your kindness. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, the lack of formables. Shit. The last time a formable was added was over a year ago, which is it's very depressing to think about. This lack of updates has understandably left formables in a very weird position, where they are just in an unfinished mess. Some countries have gotten great modifiers, and some countries just exist. This is USA, arguably the strongest country in the game. They also get one of the easiest formables in the game, that just adds modifiers that buffs all of their strengths. And this formable is also completely fictional. This is Switzerland, one of the weakest countries in the region. Their formable, the Alpine Republic, gives them a nice population boost and makes them able to fight against their neighbors, instead of dying to them immediately. This formable is also completely fictional. It was removed. Do you see what's going on here? Formables is a way to expand your nation, so why give the strongest countries in the game the best modifiers and the weakest nations nothing? Let's just give Germany and France the strongest formable in the game, giving 20% more attack. And let's give it the formable of Benelux. Nothing! Maybe the Benelux might be considered too easy to form, but the Empire of Brazil literally only requires one nation, and that is Uruguay, and that formable gives a modifier? I'm not sure if this is because Hyperant haven't finished updating the game, or because he actually planned to make superpowers this overpowered in the first place. Either way, it's still too one-sided. Formables right now are too dense and unbalanced. I feel like I've said that word in almost every video of mine. What do I mean by dense? Well, Hyperant wants every formable to have some historical basis, but because of him refusing to update the game, only the popular countries have been updated and gotten their formables. France and the UK here has 5 formables. Actually, no, the UK can't form the European Union, even though the game starts in 2019. France and the UK here has 5 and 4 formables, all with their unique modifiers and required land. Sri Lanka has 1. This formable is planned on being removed. But thank God Hyperant forgot the existence of formables, so enjoy it while you still can. To some degree, I can understand wanting to have a strategy game focused on historical accuracy. You'd rather play rock, paper, scissors than rock, paper, scissors, gun, Death Star, whatever. The first is more familiar and easier to understand, but at the same time, isn't some random bullshit also fun? We already have dozens of historical games, but these games also give the option to not go historical and instead go do some alt history, so why can't Rise of Nations also do that? Not to mention, most historical empires are also based in Europe and Asia, at least in the game. There's literally 2 European formables that combined take up all of Africa. Europe is already the most played region in the game. Why keep giving them the cool stuff and not the countries in Africa or South America? Look at the formables in Europe, and then look at the formables in South America. Historical accuracy can sometimes be very detrimental to a game. But this is just a straight up execution. Every formable is just condensed into Europe. Might as well just call the game Rise of Europe, featuring USA and China. This is why I would like to advocate for the addition of fictional empires, or at least more of them. Fictional empires would allow for much more creativity on what is required to form the formable, and could also be a great way to interact with the community. I have seen dozens of great suggestions from members of the Discord or just people in the comments. Fictional empires aren't limited by what they can do, so most will have some case of schizophrenia. Yeah, my formable, the 10th Swedish Empire, requires the capital of China. I know, it's beautiful. Luckily, we have Courland Livonia here, that already feels like a fictional empire, based on it requiring Gambia and Trinidad. There's never any reason to form this before the Baltic Federation, and forming it at all is never really worth it, unless you really need that 10 stability. Can we have more of this, please? This is fun randomness. Instead of getting jump scared by a wall of text, how about we add some new formable, with a cool flag that you've never seen before. I remember when the Angevin Empire was added for the first time, I had no idea an update happened, and a random flag I had never seen before appeared on the screen. It was the coolest shit ever, so I immediately went to try and form it. I have never formed that again ever since, except for a quick speedrun, but at the time it was fun. And all of this is why I think there should be formables that are also fictional. But this aspect of formables is just a preference. It's sad that Hyperent just isn't doing more. The aspect of formables that really needs to be fixed, like right now please, is the balancing, aka modifiers. It feels like Hyperent just drew tickets on what modifiers to give each formable. Why does the Swedish Empire and Frankish Empire have stronger modifiers than the formable that requires all of Europe? Oh wait, sorry, not the British. Why does Russia have two formables that are virtually identical, but one has modifiers that are clearly better than the other? Why does USA get a formable that only requires 2 nations? And that gets a modifier, but every small nation that requires 2 nations doesn't get a modifier. Why does... I think you get the point. Making stronger countries even stronger and weaker countries even weaker is an interesting decision, I'll give him that. But this weird distribution has opened its own can of worms. There's no reason to form the European Union if you're already the Frankish Empire, since you lose your modifiers. This is just bad game design. It's like in... what can I use? Let's use Minecraft. It's like in Minecraft, if a stone sword was better than a diamond sword. One is clearly harder to get, but is somehow weaker. Like the formable would be worth much more if the cores were harder to get. But as of right now, the modifiers is where the money is at. So the smaller formable is clearly better. Formables should not be designed to be avoided, like, huh? Especially ones that require this much effort. Almost every country in Europe has one formable that is just better than the European Union. On the top of my head, the Holy Roman Empire, Yugoslavia and the Byzantine Empire. You are just better off forming the European Union before the smaller formable, which is just stupid. You should not actively avoid forming like this, especially avoiding forming the bigger formable after the smaller one. This is one of the easiest and most simple things to fix. After you've formed your formable, give a pop-up that asks if you want to keep your previous modifiers. There, easy. This way you can get the cores you want as a reward for your efforts, while also not losing the modifiers that are clearly better. However, an easier formable having better modifiers is still a problem in my opinion, especially when so many countries barely have any formable that gives any modifier. The perfect formula for formables in my opinion is the following. 1. An early formable that is really only available to the smaller nations, usually only requiring 1 or 4 countries. Benelux is a great example of this. This formable shouldn't give a too crazy modifier, but it should at least give something. Then there should be a middle formable that requires maybe 10 or 20 countries, like the Soviet Union or something in the same size of the Frankish Empire. And finally, there should be an end formable. The African Union, European Union, Roman Empire and so on. A formable that requires almost an entire continent. The modifiers should also gradually increase in usefulness, and in some cases the middle formable can have better modifiers than the end formable, but only if the starting country is weak to begin with. We don't want more Frankish empires. But some of these are impossible without fictional empires, because a ton of countries simply don't have any historical empires. It's very saddening when Hyperant also have been removing formables in regions that have few of them, like the Adjuran Sultanate or the United States of South America. Maybe they were removed for balancing reasons, or because they were too big. But why remove them instead of reworking them to only require less cities? You're basically nerfing a lot of regions, especially now with the addition of modifiers. And you're also kinda insulting the player base by removing stuff that was in there since the beginning. That's kinda what happens when you change the vision of the game after it's been out for years. Yeah. And that's Formables and the end. No, wait. There's still one way we can improve the Formables even more. You see, to be completely honest, Formables are just way too bland as of right now. There's no flexibility. To form a specific formable, you need to be a certain country. There's no workaround. This is why there's no batshit insane strategies in Rise of Nations, like forming the Roman Empire's Antarctica. Do you see where I'm going with this? That's why I would like to suggest that you should be able to form any formables as any country, but only if you move your capital to their capital, and that country is wiped off the face of the earth. So, if you move your capital to Paris as Antarctica, you get all of Francis's formables available. This could be a great way to simulate culture without actually having culture in the game. It's just like, oh, I now own your capital, whoopsie daisy, I'm now French. Oh, the horror. Only allowing one country to claim the inheritance to the Roman Empire is cringe, especially when certain countries which have definitely owned Rome before has also claimed the inheritance to Rome. This mechanic would allow for formables that wouldn't normally be able to form. Because of this rule that you can't release more than one nation at the beginning of the game, most releasables can't be formed unless you break the rules in some way. How the hell is Bavaria ever going to win over Russia? This mechanic would allow you to form Bavaria's formable, albeit in a weird way. I do also realize that this could be abused, but gradually increase the cost of moving capitals or something. This isn't really a problem if appropriate measures are taken to prevent people from abusing mechanics like this. Of course, the completion list for the formables would have to be reworked, but add some achievements instead. I think they would add more fun challenges to the community. For example, add an achievement like Form Rome as San Marino or something. A formables Pokédex is just a track of which countries you have played as. And finally, yeah, I have no idea how I talked about this for so long, but my voice is dying. I've talked for too long. Subscribe and like the video, and I'll put my phone on vibrate and shove it up my ass.